Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering why my mind keeps on spinning. This isn't how living to me was told. Why am I like this? Something's always amiss. Can't put my finger on it, but it's there. Wait for it to subside, but my mind won't apply. Waiting for the clear. Is it bad? Sometimes I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away. Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering how the world keeps on spinning, kinda scared of living when it unfolds. Hard to see the light when everything is silent, waiting for the clear. Thankful I'm alive, but terrified of dying. But hey, I'm still here. Is it bad? Sometimes I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away.
You're the night sky, trying to make me see your stars. But the dark gets so lonely. Now I see violet, I can feel silence. And the dark's all that I see. When your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound, I'll find violet in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. Be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. You're the night sky, hiding behind dark gray clouds. I can't figure you out now. I see your blue. There is so much cold in you, and the silence is so loud when you go. I just stay dancing with my shadow all day. Watch the time. I can't find the point where our two pass the line, but you're the
What's up, guys? Welcome to Diggity, a video game podcast, episode number 244. That's crazy. We're going to be at 245. We got to do something special for 250, by the way.
Okay, I'm down.
We're gonna figure.
I don't know
out.
what.
I don't know what either.
You're just gonna have all of Spawn Camp on there,
just a little partay
in one episode.
Yeah, something fun.
That'd be hell. That would be like assault on your ears.
Oh, absolutely. But it'd be fun. It'd be a good time.
Be a lot of fun.
I'm Jeff James. With me, as always, incredible, unobtainable, luscious Brody Faults, bringing you incredible news. Not so much news this week, as it's a pretty dead week, but we've got something fun that'll translate pretty well both on the audio and video version of the podcast, and that's we're going to be ranking every single Nintendo handheld and console. I'm going to say main console and handheld in history. And there'll probably be some debate. I think, honestly, you and I are pretty aligned a lot on this. There'll probably be some debate external from this podcast where people will be like, what the fuck? How could you do that to the DSi?
And to like be entirely clear here, this is solely Nintendo against Nintendo. This is not Nintendo versus fucking PS5 and Xbox Series X. This is Nintendo versus itself.
Exactly. But before we get into all of that, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Every single Thursday evening, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, King Time Zone, we go live on YouTube and Twitch. And the audio version of the podcast goes live every Friday morning, very, very early. Some might use the term. I will not tonight. Instead, I will say the ass crack of dawn, and instead of butt crack of dawn.
I don't think that helps. Yeah, I don't think that helps at all.
It gets the point across even better. But it goes live at 5 a.m. on Friday, so you should see it hit your podcast platform of choice. And speaking of that, we're available on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. So whatever platform you're listening on to right now and you want to refer us to one of your friends, they definitely will be able to listen to us because we are pretty much everywhere. I'm pretty sure we actually are everywhere. There was actually a site that I thought we weren't on, and then I went to go try to submit, and we were already on it.
Wow, so, that's impressive.
It was a pretty small podcasting site trying to make it. But anyways, yeah. And beyond that, the news obviously is that on this YouTube channel has changed to the name of Spawn Camp now. And Spawn Camp is a collection of a multitude of different shows and podcasts. Basically a network of gaming and geek culture to be able to watch on YouTube and listen to the collection of our podcasts. Right now it includes Build Bros, which is some great Gundam talk. And great just geek culture
and
talk
anime.
In general. Yeah, and anime.
Yeah.
Just in general stuff. Just fantastic stuff. It's got us, obviously, Diggity, a video game podcast. There'll be some more Diggity videos that'll come out, stuff like unboxings and reviews and stuff like that. That'll also happen down the line. You've also got the WASD and Beyond Boys, which is like PC-based stuff mainly, but also a lot of gaming news and different takes on things and some pop culture stuff that comes up. And then you've got the great OBO show, the Objectively Bad Opinions podcast, which is just a get together, 4 friends get together, 4, 3, 2 friends sometimes, who knows, but generally 4 people get together and just have a good time discussing whatever the hell comes up. Last episode I was on, we talked about ghosts and spooky holiday inns.
Oh God.
And
yeah, I forgot about that.
So I was listening in the car, I died. When the only other comment when Nick's like, Jeff, you're such a logical person, but you're afraid of ghosts. And I went, yeah, I never really thought about it. But yeah, absolutely. I'm fucking terrified of ghosts. But beyond that, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spawn Camp. You can go check us out there. And subscribe to our socials at Diggity Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And without further ado, as per tradition, what have you been playing, Brody?
I have been playing... what have I been playing? I've been playing a bunch of Lost Ark. Got into that. That is like a MMO style type game, but it's more Diablo than it is really an MMO. It's really cool. I really enjoy it so far. I created one of every class, and I've been playing probably a couple hours on each class before I decide which one I'm going to actually dump a bunch of time into. So far, it's really good. Granted, I have played that intro part a lot now, and I'm getting sick of that part specifically. But I think I have two more characters to run through this and kind of get used to a little bit, and then I'll be ready to kind of take off here. But so far, I'm really enjoying it. Really, really having a good time with it. And I also played a little bit of Ali Ali World. Not a ton of Ali Ali World, but a pretty, probably like an hour and a half. I haven't really, it's been one of those weeks, but yeah, I enjoy it. I went back and I bought 1 and 2 because they come in a bundle for like, I think it was like $3 or something like that. So I went ahead and picked those up. I do not care for 1 or 2. Not at all. Very, very focused on like making sure you hit a button when you land too, and just there's a lot of things going on to where it's probably too much. I feel like Ali Ali World simplifies it in a way that makes it a lot more enjoyable to play. Plus, the art style is gorgeous. From what I've played, it is a little difficult, and but it's not awful. It is definitely something I think I can figure out if I play a little bit more. But yeah, right now I'm like, I got to figure it out and spend a little bit more time to actually, master what's going, or not even master, just get my hands around what's going on here. But yeah, other than that, I think that's really about it. How about you?
So I played a bunch of different stuff. I played Overwatch, played some NHL 22, continuing to play some Parkitect. Really like that a lot. I think it's a great pickup for anyone on Steam, and they're constantly supporting it with updates. Dived actually a little bit into Mario Kart on the Switch, only because of obviously the Nintendo news of adding new courses. I was like, I'm going to jump back and just play it and just see what I like about it, and I will be purchasing that when it's available. So
yeah,
I will definitely be picking that up. And then, gosh, what else? Play a little bit of Apple Arcade. This weekend, I plan on hooking up a PlayStation controller to my Apple TV and trying a little bit of Apple Arcade stuff just to see what it's like. There's some decent games on there. Like I'm going to try to play Oceanhorn on that through that. I just kind of like the idea of that.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And it's also going to kind of take me in this like direction of, it's so close to being a console if it just had the streaming capabilities like a Stadia.
Yeah.
And I think if there's any company that could do that and get great adoption from it, it'd be Apple.
Yeah,
so it'd be interesting to see if they offer that or they do that in the future. But that's what I've been playing. I mean, nothing crazy, nothing like brand new. There's not much I'm like, oh man, I'm really stoked for this to come out. Like there's nothing. I'm just kind of like feeding through some games that I have. I still have got a good amount of stuff I have to get through. It Takes Two with the wife. Still have I don't know.
Oh, I still have probably half of that game left.
Yeah. It's long. I mean, we've put a considerable dent into it for sure, but we still have to get through that. I definitely still have to get through some of Hades, and I haven't even started Valhalla, so I do want to play Valhalla, even though it's got some mixed emotion to it. I still want to play it. So
yeah, it's worth playing. I mean, honestly, what I have put into Valhalla has been in spurts where I'll play for like one night and then I won't touch it for a couple weeks and then I'll come back to it, and that keeps it kind of somewhat fresh to where I'm not getting burnout on it.
Yeah.
But
so I guess bulk of this episode going to be ranking. So let's go to the sweet new screen share screen we got, which is just fancy AF and has both of us sitting there, and we've got Tier Maker over here. All right, so do you see it?
Not yet. I'm waiting for it to pop up.
Oh, yeah,
I'm watching YouTube,
delay.
so I got the delay.
Yeah.
I didn't watch on Twitch tonight.
Delay, so. Whatever. Anyways, we're good. So there's a bunch of items on this list that are really microscopic things like Pocket Pikachu and shit like that. We're gonna try to keep it more based to the basics, I would say, and we're gonna start with home consoles, and then we'll work our way into handhelds. But for now, we'll keep it locked onto consoles, and we'll be able to rank these things. The rankings go pretty easy. It's S plus, S plus, S, A, B, C, D, F, F minus, F minus, minus. I'm sure things will move as we go along, but
yeah,
This is fantastic. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast too, don't worry. We're going to talk in a manner of like, we hate this or we like this shit and put it accordingly into it. And then what's also nice is on the video, you can go and check out the video if you want to and go to the end if you want to see basically where we ended. So let us begin. We'll start with the Nintendo Entertainment System, and I'll read a quick little blurb just about units sold, shit like that. See if we can kind of not sway us, but give some fact behind the stuff, right? So it sold 61 million units, okay?
Wow, that's impressive, honestly, for
Yeah.
basically being one of the first real home consoles.
Mm-hmm. It was one of the first systems that could play different titles on interchangeable cartridges that could be purchased in stores. Obviously, Atari had this as well. However, it was able to do different games, not built by other third parties and such. A redesign was made in 1993 called AV Famicom in Japan and New Style NES in other regions such as America in 1985. So, shall we discuss?
This is so tough.
This is the
already
OG.
tough.
This is the big poppy of gaming.
So I don't have a whole lot of nostalgia for this console myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't really get into games until later
because I did not have the money to get the new systems for a while until me and my brother had our own like paper route to save up. So we had like one of these hand-me-downs from my uncle.
Ah,
and
gotcha.
We played the shit out of the NES. And the
See,
SNES.
I played the shit out of the SNES.
Yes, I also played the shit out of that too. But we got this first. Fun fact too, before we get into the tier structure of this, before we first put the NES down, video games had done so bad as an industry right before the NES was going to launch in America that they put the NES in the toy aisle. In the electronics section instead of the toy aisle, because video games used to be in the toy aisle. And so people bought it as an electronic device rather than a toy, thus allowing adults to go into it and be able to access to get the box. Because, I mean, if you're a guy and you're going to go, or a girl, or you're an adult, and you're going to go down the toy aisle and buy something, it's a little awkward if you're by yourself, if your kid's not with you or it's not Christmas time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right now I don't
like you go to Target, right? You go to Target and you're in the Hot Wheels section, and next to it there's an NES. You're gonna be like, and at that time, video games were so new that it was
at
one of
that
these things
time,
where it's a toy.
especially. I think now it's a little less frowned upon. I mean, I've walked out of Target with Gundams without my kids there, so it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So this is a hard one for me because it is. I mean, it's the granddaddy, right? Like this is
Certainly
basically what kicked all of this off. I don't have the nostalgia for it, so I would. But again, being the grandfather of home consoles, really. I mean, yeah, you had your Atari.
I think it's an S plus.
Oh, I was in the A or S somewhere in there.
Okay, why?
Just because none of those games hold up to this day, right? Not really. Some of your
fair enough. Mario.
That's my big thing. Mario
really.
does.
Well, not
yeah,
the
Mario
original
holds up
one.
all right.
I would say the SNES
I would say
version
S.
works better. Okay, S.
I say S.
All right, that's fine. I'll take that. Boy, people are gonna be fucking like, what?
Yeah, it's tough because again, it's granddaddy, right? But at the same time,
this is 10 out of 10. This is scoring an 8,
which is
in
not,
perspective. That's fine.
it's not bad,
That's
right?
fine.
Especially for a console that most of the games don't hold up. But you have to put respect on that name, right? Like
Certainly.
that is the fucking granddaddy. Like otherwise, if I was looking at this now and say this console came out now compared to other things, like it would be obviously a very different story. But I mean, it's the NES, man. Like it's a big deal. I also just don't have that nostalgia there for the NES. So,
all right. Moving on to the SNES, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System featured enhanced graphics, a brand new controller, and more. It was the first 16-bit console by Nintendo, though it sold fairly well, around 49 million units. The Sega Genesis was a major competitor to the SNES, with both Nintendo and Sega giving an extensive ad campaign calling out both sides. Like the NES, it had a redesign, this time being the Super Famicom Junior in Japan and new style SNES in other regions. Also, fun fact, it had a satellite modem peripheral in Japan. Way ahead.
wow, that's
Way
crazy.
ahead. for the time.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yes, I'll provide fun facts.
A lot of cool, like, random Nintendo facts here.
Yeah.
I have so much nostalgia for the SNES.
Oh my god, same, bro.
Growing up as a kid, I never had one, but I went to a babysitter's that all summer long, and then after school, I would go to this babysitter's house, and we would play SNES, and then they ended up getting an N64, and we played the shit out of the N64. But the SNES, I mean, I have so many fond memories of this console. This is, to me, I think this is S+.
S plus or S plus plus? This is a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10?
Oh, fuck. Don't do this to me.
So I think I think it's I hate to give anything perfect, but I think it's pretty fucking damn near perfect.
I mean,
because there's memorable games that are just phenomenal. I mean, let's not shit anybody on Nintendo Direct Online, right? When they put out retro games to it, right? Like
NES was cool.
SNES stuff comes up, like they turn it on, they're like SNES. It's like Super Mario World. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Let's jump into that.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to putting it in S++.
Also,
I think you have a point.
Unbelievable. I loved it. I just love the style of all of it.
Yeah, that step up from the NES to the SNES is night and day.
So like, 9 or 10. 9 or 10, sir.
10.
Okay. I'll go with you on that. I agree with that.
I
really think it's better than the NES.
I can sit down and I can still play SNES games to this day. I can still go back and load up Super Mario World and still enjoy the shit out of it. Whereas, like, the original Mario and things like that, I don't enjoy it nearly as much. It's cool from a novel standpoint, but I would throw it in that 10 category.
I agree with you. I mean, I think it's almost a damn near perfect system. Moving on to the N64. The Nintendo 64 featured greatly improved 3D graphics and a new controller that introduced a modern joystick. It was also the first home console to have 4 controller ports built into the system. It sold 32 million units with its lack of a disc format, the lack of strong third-party support, and it being released after its competitors' consoles. It could not sell as well. 1996.
This one's a tough one because the controller's dog shit.
So the controller at the time was given grace because it was just so interesting and weird. Now, I mean, you get limp joystick. You don't want limp stick.
No, that's the worst new metal band. This one, God, I have a lot of fond memories with this console. One of my favorite my favorite game of all times is on this console. But I have a hard time giving the N64 anything above a B, just mainly because of the controller and mainly because, God, I don't know. It may slip into that A category, but the controller was terrible, and they had huge windows in between some of these massive games that we know the console for in hindsight.
2 games in the US.
Right. I would actually throw the N64 into B, and I hate to say that. Again, my favorite game of all time is on this console.
I will fight the B and say A, only because although console design shitty, graphics did not keep up with competition, and the controller was shitty, the amount of IP that was birthed on this console was absolutely insane. So Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Smash, right?
Yep.
Fucking Mario Kart as we know it today in its
Diddy
form.
Kong Racing,
Diddy Kong
Blitz,
Racing, SXS,
Star Fox 64. There's
I don't know,
so many
if you're
good
cool
games.
with it, I'd rather put it at an A just for that fact.
I'm okay with that.
It was a cultivator of great intellectual property. And I will also bring you one of the weirdest facts ever in the world. Nintendo had to sell Mario Party with protective gloves for the N64. The N64's controller was oddly shaped and difficult for some gamers to grasp at first, but the implementation of an analog stick is something that systems have been using ever since. However, that stick, despite being a logical leap forward for gaming tech, came back to haunt the company after receiving complaints about injuries suffered while using the analog stick to play Mario Party. The New York Attorney General came to terms on a settlement with Nintendo to begin selling sports gloves to anyone who bought the title. Blisters were of injuries, of course, during portions of the game that required players to move the stick at a rapid pace because it was just a hard piece of plastic. There's no rubber on the top of that fucking thing. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, it was terrible.
It was awful. They could call an 800 number if they wanted the gloves to obtain them.
This hurts me to even put this at that low, but because I love this console, I really do. But you can't overlook some of the issues that this console had, and it definitely did birth some of the craziest. I mean, just best IPs going forward. Obviously, Zelda and Mario were around before, but not in this way. This was a very unique and very. I mean, honestly, this cultivated like all of gaming going forward. I mean, you had GoldenEye and all sorts of things on here that completely changed gaming landscape. But overall, as a console, looking at this as a console itself, I agree. A tier. That's where we're at.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Next up, the GameCube. The GameCube featured enhanced graphics and a new controller as the games came on mini disc. It was the first Nintendo home console to solely use a disc format for games. It was also the first and only Nintendo system to require additional memory cards in order to save progress. Though not Nintendo's worst-selling home console, it sold around 22 million units, being no match for the PlayStation 2, which was very popular at the time, even to this day, being the best-selling console. Released 2001. Fun fact about the GameCube, it's not actually a cube. Despite a seemingly clear-cut moniker, the GameCube is really a cube in name only, though its width and length do manage to get close at 5.9 inches and 6.3 inches, respectively. Its height is over an inch smaller at 4.3. Not a cube.
Not a true cube.
Also, Pikmin is actually playable on PC. That's also a fun fact. Nintendo left a .exe file on the mini disc, and it is completely playable on PC.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, people got to it and extracted shit out of it. But yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, of course.
So, fun facts. Fun facts here, always on Diggity. Anyways, where the fuck does it rank? For me,
I'm going to let you go first on this.
The N64 on this. So, the GameCube is interesting. Looking back on it, looks very lame.
Yeah.
Third-party games on it were awful.
Yes.
Like, usually it was like shovelware bullshit of like, you name a movie and then they made a game and it was on GameCube, you know what I mean? And it was like a lesser version of the shitty game that would be on PlayStation for the movie. But it also had incredible IP on this as well. I mean, great shit. We had Double Dash, we had Melee, we had
Metroid Prime,
we had Star Fox,
Wind Waker,
which arguably is a lesser liked Zelda due to its type.
Yeah.
I fucking love Wind Waker.
Wind Waker is fantastic.
It's great. I personally think it sits at Nest tier. I don't think it's an S plus. I don't think it's a 9 out of 10. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10. I think it's an 8.
At Nest tier. I like that. It's not S tier anymore. It's Nest tier.
And the controller is fantastic too. I mean, it molded to your hands.
Well, I mean, people are still buying that controller to play Smash to this day.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, that is absolutely something to be said there. I would agree. It is. Just looking back at that console in hindsight, it's kind of a dorky console, right? But I remember I have so many fond memories with the GameCube because that was one of my like first home consoles that I actually owned.
Yeah, same.
I got that in an N64
that we bought outright. Like we got it, and I was lucky enough living in Canada. I got the special Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Zelda 2 mini disc that came out with launch for the GameCube, which is a Canada only thing from Toys R Us, and I've got it. I need to bring that back over here so I have it for my collection, but that's huge thing.
I would say this is S tier, and I would almost throw it into S plus tier if it wasn't for the terrible third-party support.
Here's the thing, though. I want to bring this up, too. Bad third-party support, but what other Nintendo console had so much modulation to it? The Game Boy player.
This is true. I mean,
the Game Boy
you could
player,
make
bro.
one crazy thing here.
Like
22 million. I would
I
have
thought
thought
it
it
was
would have
more.
been higher than that.
Yeah.
I knew it was really low, but 22 million when you hear it compared to, like even the N64 at 32 million seems just downright fucking disrespectful.
Yeah, I know.
Oh god, I don't know if I want to go S
I
plus or S on
I
this.
think I'm gonna go S level, Nest level for sure.
Yeah, let's throw it S or NES level
Okay,
for sure.
it gets thrown into Nest.
It's such I adore that console. I still have a broken one sitting over here. The disc drive is entirely fucked on this thing, but I mean I remember I played Tony Hawk Pro Skater on this. I played a lot of shit on here that worked great, and I easily one of my personal most beloved consoles, but it's really hard to when you're objectively looking at everything and trying to, figure out where it belongs. I think Nest here is good.
Remember how like what was it? Was it called cubes or blocks? Like the memory, and you're like, what the fuck is a block? Like,
Yeah,
how much does that
blocks.
represent?
Yeah, because Nintendo just assumed that nobody else could figure out like actual storage measurements, and so it was just all blocks. It's like, oh, you need 12 blocks, and you need 12 blocks, and you have 3 blocks open. Like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I have to delete something. Don't need this save file anymore, I guess.
Fuck.
Oh, and Smash Bros. Melee also on this. I adore that game still.
Cool.
Fond memories.
Moving on, we've got the Wii. Featured motion controls, a new online system, various multimedia channels, and slightly improved graphics. The graphical change wasn't nearly as dramatic as previous console transitions. It fully supported GameCube games and controllers at launch, making it the first Nintendo home console to be backwards compatible. And its main selling point was its motion controls, obviously. This made the casual audience lean towards buying it. It sold 101 million units, making it Nintendo's best-selling home console, and it launched in 2006. Good God. Crazy shit.
I feel like I'm gonna get hate for what I'm about to say, but I think this belongs B tier because the motion control wasn't all that great, and it was definitely more suited for a casual audience rather than somebody that actually wanted to sit down and play a real fucking game.
I agree. The only thing I'd say about it being higher up is that at the time that motion control was a big deal. I
Yeah,
have
that
to go
motion control
back
at the
to
time was a big deal.
I agree with you. Like everything looking back
That's
on
true.
it was dumbed down.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I guess, well, there was, oh my gosh, I'm going to get killed for this. Twilight Princess on GameCube and Wii, correct?
Yes.
It crossovered. Skyward Sword on Wii and Wii U.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Okay. Skyward
they did
Sword
a
used
HD
the motion. Skyward Sword, arguably not a great Zelda game, not the best.
Yeah, and some people would fight over that, but I agree. As a diehard Zelda fan, I don't like Skyward Sword.
Yeah. I mean, my point is that like most games were dumbed down, like you said. Even the hardcore IP stuff. So if I had to rank it, I think I'd sit it at a B, honestly. While technologically it wasn't even that it was technologically advanced. They just took a bigger risk and it paid out. It worked. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't necessarily new technology, I guess, for gaming. But with all that great IP that carried over from both the N64 and GameCube, they dumbed it down. So we cool.
Yeah,
B?
I mean, I'm cool with that. I would say really the only games I really got it. I mean, I played some third party stuff on there. Like I remember I had like Rock Band for the Wii or something like that, but or Guitar Hero for the Wii. But I think I played like I definitely played Twilight Princess, played Skyward Sword, and I played a lot of Smash Bros. Brawl. But other than that, I mean, the game that sticks out the most in my mind is Wii Sports, which is silly. But I also had like a Need for Speed Carbon, I think was the game that was out on that, and that was wonky at best. I don't know. Definitely at the time it was a very, very cool thing that they did there, but I don't think in the long run it has really held up. And And I think B is by no means a bad console. Like the Wii is not a bad console. It's just I don't think it has withstood the test of time like some of these other consoles, especially with like the IP that they brought forward, where I don't think we really brought a lot of that.
Sure. Fun fact on the Wii Balance board sold in Japan does not hold as much weight as the Western Wii Balance board.
That seems like an odd choice. Just make it the same across the board. Fair enough.
This one's going to be really quick.
We're
going to get a little into the weeds on this, but I do want to discuss it only because we can fill it and it makes sense. So Wii Family Edition, also called the RVL 101, is a revision of the Wii that could only sit horizontally and removed GameCube support. It came bundled with new Super Mario Bros. Wii and the original Super Mario Galaxy soundtrack. And released in 2000.
Just the soundtrack, not the game?
And it came out in 2011. This had Wii Motion Plus. If I had to rank this, I would sit this shit at an easy D, because Wii Motion Plus was the biggest sack of shit ever, because they said, boy, it's got better motion, and what game did we come out for it? Wii Music, moving a trumpet around. Are we agreeing on D or F?
Oh, yeah.
Because it also removed GameCube support.
I mean, that alone is almost enough to bump it down to F for me personally. I don't... Yeah, without the GameCube support and without... and like you said, the Wii Motion Plus was bullshit. And you could get it on the regular Wii. It was just an attachment you plugged into the bottom of the Wiimote. Like, it wasn't... I'd say... D at best, but I would lean more towards F.
Okay, cool.
It's the Wii, but worse.
Well, we can get even worse, my friend. 4, we can go to the Wii U. The Wii U features a new controller known as the Wii U Gamepad, which has a 6.2-inch touchscreen built into it. It also boasts new 1080p HD graphics only on the TV screen. And it was released in 2 models, the 8GB white version and the 32GB black version. It has the NFC chip used to scan in Amiibos, which was introduced, which was a cool collective thing that they did, and it's kind of fizzled out recently. But it fully supports Wii games and controllers with bad marketing and no one wanting the gimmick, which was the gamepad. Although the rise of the iPad coming out and touchscreens being prevalent everywhere, it sold very poorly. It sold around 13 million units, making it Nintendo's worst-selling home console. It was released in 2012, and it died in 2017.
I feel like it died long before that, but...
Certainly.
Officially died in 2017. I don't really have any experience with this. I didn't realize... at the time this even came out that this was I thought it was just a new version of the Wii. I didn't realize it was a whole new console. At the time I was out of the Nintendo realm for a little while. This thing was bad. They had the only saving grace for this console is it had a lot of really good games that have now been ported to Switch.
Fun fact on it too, just like the Wii U will uses a modified Blu-ray format because Nintendo didn't want to pay the licensing fees. So it was only capable of holding up to 25 gigs of data per layer, but it would not play Blu-ray discs because they didn't want the licensing. So they didn't have to put Blu-ray on the machine.
Yeah, which at this point in time was odd. Like I remember, like that was a big deal if your console at this point in time had a Blu-ray player in it. Like, hey, this is awesome. This makes it actually worth it. God, I don't even know. Do you have much experience with the Wii U?
Did you
have a Wii U?
Yeah, I had one. So I bought one.
Okay.
I had the 32 gig black model. And it was interesting. So I enjoyed... First of all, Mario Kart 8 was on it, which is fantastic. There was Zelda Skyward Sword on it, and it was done in more of a manner where it wasn't as much motion, which is nice. And you didn't have to use a nunchuck with your fucking controller, and you could feel like you're playing a video game again. That was nice. The touchscreen, it came out in 2012. It came out right at the perfect time, but it also came out at the worst time. So it came out at a time where it's like, oh my God, there's a touchscreen on this thing. And then you got it, and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like this is worse than like a 3DS screen. This is far worse. And I truly believe, well, and we've known now, as history's told it and stuff is leaked out about it. But, you know, it was supposed to be much more because in the keynote they were showing how people were able to sketch on it and video call each other and do more things on it. And that really never came to be, probably because of the popularity and they wanted to cut costs. Ultimately, it ended up turning into a multimedia remote for my dorm in college where I could turn my TV on from my bed. I could watch Netflix on the Wii U screen, or I could watch it on my TV, and I could play the occasional game on it. That was about it. I mean, it was pretty gimmicky it was the best TV remote you could ever have. Like when you lost your fucking TV remote, this shit could scan like any model, anything, like the shittiest like Black Friday TV you could buy from like one of the weirdest brands. Like we're talking like a 16-inch fucking TV or something like that. It could scan that shit no problem, and the IR blaster worked for the TV, so it made a great TV remote. The rest of the console was just weird, and it was just this weird like bastardized version of releasing something where they released this clunky touchscreen that wasn't used or adopted by any developers really after a certain period of time. You still had to use Wiimotes, so you were still buying an old controller for $60 or taking over your old controller to where it kind of felt like what we've discussed a little bit with the Series X, where it's like, I don't feel like this was a completely new experience. And you're still kind of waiting for that technological leap to take you to that. The dev kits were horrible. I was able to have experience, I guess I'll say luckily, to be able to witness and utilize a Wii U dev kit, and they are horrendous. It looks like a fucking toaster, and there's a coax cable. So it's really cool. It's like green and white for like Luigi on the actual gamepad, and it looked really cool as a color. And there's a coax cable that goes into the top of a fitting into the top of it with a big old rectangle sticking out the top of the gamepad. And then that plugs into this beige all metal box with 6 LED lights on it that looks like a fucking toaster. And you had to you had the disc, but then you had to load up separately into the fucking gamepad. It was a disaster for development. It made no sense. And when we started looking at it for development, I went, no, this is fucked up. We're not fucking doing this. And everyone else, every other studio was like, no, this is fucking horrendous. So I don't know. I think it's above the Wii Family Edition because it's not a cop-out. It's its own standalone thing, and it gave us Mario Kart 8. It gave us some decent games towards the end as well.
And the virtual console on it was pretty decent too.
Yeah, they did. They made up for that. It started having apps, which is kind of cool too. But it's like, what the fuck was it ever going to be? You couldn't take it away from your console.
No.
Right? But you can obviously see the steps that it was before the Switch was technologically possible at a cost basis that they could sell.
Yeah. I think I would kind of throw it in that D tier.
I agree.
Again, I don't have much experience with it. I think I literally only played this thing once, maybe twice. But just from what I know about it and how terrible the marketing for this was, and also to name a new console, the Wii U, especially being from Nintendo, who has notoriously just been it's, but
hard though when you sold 101 million units.
Yeah.
You lose that name,
that's
right?
True.
Fuck.
That's
true.
You
still wanted to get the general audience, but the problem with the general audience is they were fine to have a Wii for the next 20 years because they didn't give a shit about games, right?
Right.
Speaking more of Wii, just quickly, the Wii Mini is a smaller version of the Wii console that, like the Game Boy Micro, was released after its successor. The Wii U, like the Wii Family Edition, it removes GameCube backwards compatibility. In addition, it also lacks many of the other Wii's features, such as internet connectivity, an SD slot, WLAN adapter, and only one USB port. It was first released in Canada in 2012, then North America and Europe in 2013, a year after the Wii U's release, and was bundled with Mario Kart Wii. The sales of the console have never been confirmed. And it released in 2012. It is essentially a box with a door that opens up, and that is absolutely fucking it. This is an F minus. This is a 1 out of fucking 10 in my mind.
Yeah. I don't know why they thought this would work at all. Especially after you just launched the Wii U and then you're like, hey, but here's a Wii Mini that doesn't have any of the features of a Wii. What?
Yeah, yeah.
This thing was dog shit. I don't.
What's crazy
I mean,
to me is it's got to be their sample market, and Canada is a pretty perfect, like Australia and Canada. When people want to launch something tech wise, it's a pretty good test market. But I remember being a kid and walking into the Walmart electronic aisle and being like, "What the fuck is that?" And it was like it looked like a VHS player. Like it was just this fucking sat there, and it was so cheap. Like we're talking, it was like under $100.
Yeah, I think it launched at $99 if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was just the guts of a Wii.
I don't know anyone that had this. I don't know anyone that had this.
I don't know anyone that had it either.
I don't even think I've seen one in a store. I literally only know of its existence because of the internet and from doing this podcast and being around all of this. Like, no fucking clue. Weirdest fucking thing.
Another quick console bite. The NES Classic Edition is a mini console that emulates the experience of the Nintendo Entertainment System. It includes 30 classic NES games and is compatible with the Wii Classic Controller and NES Classic Edition controller. Though not a huge success, it was not planned to be. With that in mind, it sold around 2 million units, making it a success in Nintendo's eyes. And it launched in 2016. So, I mean, where would we put that on this? It's reliving.
I think
and
I'd throw it
back.
I think I'd at least throw it in the NES tier, right?
I'd
to me,
say lower because you couldn't put more games on it. It just had a set amount.
I mean, you can mod the fuck out of it, I guess. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it has the majority of the
I'd say
big
put
hits.
With Wii.
I think I'd throw it in there with
The
Wii
fact
as
that
well.
they did it, the fact that it's so tiny. When they
it is
brought it back.
incredibly small. Like I have both the NES Classic and the SNE Classic or SNES Classic, and I mean they're really really cool for what they are, but I'd throw it down there with the Wii. That makes sense. It's cool. I definitely messed around with it for a little bit, but I have not touched it really since it came out. It's just not something I'm super interested in.
Yeah, I agree.
And on top of that, now you can play those on the Switch, so it kind of is like
it's
more so a collector's item at this point. Like it's sitting over here on my shelf, and I'll probably never touch it again.
Yeah. Moving on, the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch was a hybrid of home and portable gaming systems. It features a portable console with a screen that can be docked to display on larger displays. It features modular controllers that can attach to the device itself, a grip, or in each of the user's hands. With the Wii U's fail, Nintendo made sure that the Switch did not make the same mistakes. It has sold over 89.04 million units as of June 30th, 2021, which recently is, 90-something million units at this point? Something crazy like that?
It's over 100.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's 110 or something like that? Or 103?
I think it's at 103, yeah.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
And it's still growing at a rapid rate, making it the second best-selling Nintendo home console, which will most likely keep going strong. An improved version with better battery life came in August 2019. Let's talk about the Switch first. So just base-level Switch before we get into Lite and OLED. So base-level Switch, tough. Now, easy S plus.
Yes.
I don't think it's an S plus plus because we've been held back by games. And we're starting to get shit, but it was a fucking port machine for the longest time. And we also first got it, everyone was like, what is this?
Yeah. I would definitely, so it is probably my favorite Nintendo console personally, just for the idea of being handheld and also being able to play it on your TV. It like I said at the top of this episode, we aren't going to compare it to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, but it is also hard to not at least acknowledge that in some sense, because now we're also getting games that are ported over to it, like
just
Doom.
the basis of its graphic abilities, it's so limited,
right?
It was limited from the beginning.
Yeah. And it can't, it was definitely behind by the time it launched. And so like things like Doom that are being ported over there are not great. That's not the best place to play it. Adore it solely because I'm a big JRPG guy. I like RPGs and especially JRPGs. And so I play a lot of those kinds of games, and it's fantastic for that handheld mode. And there's very few consoles that I've ever talked about over the course of doing this whole podcast where I'm like, hey, this is something that's perfect for this console. And I do that all the time for the Switch because there are certain games that are something I would like to play mobile. I would say it's an easy S plus, and
I agree.
I'm almost on that edge of throwing it into S plus plus, but I agree that the fact that it is graphically limited for the games that are coming out in this day and age, I think it does drop down a tier to like a 9 out of 10. I adore this console, but I just don't think it is quite perfect.
Up next, the Switch Lite, quickly on this, loses docking ability, but gains sturdiness.
Yeah.
And non-flexibility. I think S.
Yeah, I love my Switch Lite. I only play handheld pretty much on my Switch, unless we have like people over and we're doing like playing a party game or something. Yeah. I don't have any problem with it because most of the games are developed to be played both ways. There's a couple games that really struggle to really work, but I would definitely throw it S tier for sure. I love it. I don't think it really takes that much away from what it is. I mean, granted, it does make it a handheld console only at that point, but if you go into it knowing that, I think it does it exceptionally well.
Mm-hmm. Then the OLED version of the Switch proved some problems on the base model and released on October 8th, 2021. So I think the OLED model is still S plus with the standard Switch. It doesn't change the graphics. Does it look nicer? Certainly it looks nicer. But it doesn't change its technical.
It doesn't change its
handicap.
capabilities.
Yeah.
No.
Cool. Wow,
no, I would agree with that. I would just throw it right up there with S plus. It's cool. But it's not like a necessary upgrade that you have to make.
And the last one of consoles or console-esque stuff, the SNES Classic Edition, the mini.
I throw it at an A tier.
20
one above the
built-in
NES.
games plus Star Fox 2, which was previously unreleased.
Yeah.
It can be unlocked after playing the first mission of the original game. It sold 5 million.
Just for my love of the SNES, I would throw it one above the NES Classic.
Yep.
I would throw it at A tier.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a nice 7 out of 10 for sure on that.
It has less games than the NES Classic, but I mean, there's some fucking awesome games on there.
All right, on to handhelds. Here we go. The Game Boy. The Game Boy was the first portable interchangeable cartridge handheld by Nintendo. Games were 8-bit black and white, played on a green-tinted screen. And the system had a red LED which showed the remaining power. It could last for over 30 hours on its required 4 AA batteries, released in 1989.
There is no goddamn way that lasts for 30 hours on 4 AA batteries. I remember changing batteries in this thing all the damn time.
So for me, I think while I grew up with it, sort of, I had it for a bit before I went and bought my own Game Boy Color. And my parents, I think one of my neighbors had it, and then he was like done with it or whatever, like because he moved on to something else. And then he gave it to me, and my parents wanted to see if like I actually liked it because I wanted to go spend my money on the Color. It was a cool introduction to handheld, but it also was super limited. It's kind of in line with like, it's almost like the Wii U in some fashion. It was like, here's Tetris, but like it's downgraded. Here's this, but it's downgraded. Like Zelda on it wasn't. I mean, Link's Awakening was cool. Don't get me wrong, but like, I don't know. I don't.
This is a tough one. It's so tough.
It's so, all the games on it felt so core Nintendo, which was cool, but it was like core limited Nintendo. Like there wasn't like outstanding crazy third party for Game Boy. Like I know people are like Mortal Kombat and other shit. It's like, okay, cool, but it wasn't like no one was paying attention to handheld. Like I don't know. I think it's B tier.
That's kind of where I was leaning to.
Speaking.
A lot of that is basically because it is the grandfather of the handheld market, right?
So we think
and
7
on top
out
of
of
that,
10.
I would say 7 out of 10. Yeah.
Okay.
It's tough. I have fond memories with the original Game Boy, but at the same time, it was almost more of a proof of concept that it was. I mean, you had the Game Boy Color come out shortly after, and that was a massive upgrade.
Yeah. Virtual Boy. The first Nintendo console with 3D graphics. The concept was to create a virtual reality experience, and the system featured a pair of goggles to look into, which sent a slightly different image to each eye, creating the 3D effect. The graphics could only be displayed in red and black, and the system reportedly caused headaches and nausea, leading to low sales. It was discontinued less than a year after it was released, which it was released in 1995. I think this is a F-. I don't think it's an F-, like the Mini Wii. Only on the basis that they tried something so advanced that would later, and knowing that it came back later, is cool. So I'm gonna put it at F-, a 2 out of 10.
I fully agree with that. I'd throw it above the Wii Mini, and it was
Fucking
it was
Wii Mini,
unique. Jesus, it was unique, and they tried something, and it didn't work out. But I mean, now we're also at the point, PlayStation is heavy into VR, so like. Eventually it worked out. They were just a little early on it, and it wasn't implemented all that great.
Let's talk about the Game Boy Pocket. The Game Boy Pocket, similar to the Game Boy, but slimmer with a monochrome screen rather than the original P-Soup screen. It takes 2 AAA batteries and lasts for a little less time. And the first release of the Game Boy Pocket did not come with the red LED, but due to high demand, Nintendo was asked to add the LED back to the system, and this came out in 1996 originally. I'd probably put it at A at that point.
Yeah, I think it was a big enough upgrade on the original
Fixed the screen,
to be
it wasn't
a
brick. Looked a little bit
that
nicer.
original Game Boy was a chunky boy.
Function better, yeah. Okay, so A for that. So 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it an A.
Cool.
Yeah. I almost wonder. Fuck, that's hard. Because I mean, we're gonna get into
it now. It's the same shit.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same shit.
It's a B.
I'd throw it B, especially because we're gonna get into more versions of the Game Boy that I think would technically rank higher. Now, if you did want to put the Pocket above the original Game Boy, I would have to drop the Game Boy down to a C. I think that's the only way it would work if you did want it above.
I think that's fair. Let's do that.
It's tough, and before anybody gives a shit on this, this
Game
is
Boy
very
Pocket,
hard.
The Game Boy Pocket's a B, and the original Game Boy, is a C. So the Pocket's a 7, and the Game Boy's a 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk Game Boy Light. The Game Boy Light was only released in Japan.
Hear torches lighting. I can hear the torches lighting right now, and the pitchforks being sharpened.
All right. Whatever. Fuck it. We'll make up for it. The Game Boy Light was only released in Japan. It was similar to the Game Boy Pocket, except it featured a backlit screen for playing in the dark, and it ran on 2 AA batteries. Came out in 1997. So I would put this still at the B tier. The only difference, you had a light. The light was shitty on it. I had a friend on my street whose uncle worked in Japan, had come back, and had brought this shit back.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
I've never even seen one.
The light's shitty on it. I mean, it's really hard to see. It's glare. It's like more at the bottom than it is at the top. It's a Game Boy Pocket. So I'm gonna place that in the B tier. It solves a problem, but it also had even less battery power, and it had a fucking light in it.
And and it only released in Japan. So I mean that makes it hard when you're only targeting part of the market anyway.
We don't want to do the Pocket Pikachus, right?
I don't know jack shit about the Pocket Pikachu.
Okay, that's fine. It's just a Tamagotchi, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that, but other than that, I never even fucked with one.
Then let's talk about the Game Boy Color, baby. Let's fucking go. Similar to the Game Boy, but with color graphics, it also had many technical enhancements, including a more powerful processor and an infrared wireless link-up port. The system was technically compared to the NES, except the Game Boy Color has a larger color palette. There's no backlit on the screen, It was also backwards compatible with Game Boy games and was released in 1998. I had the see-through purple one, and I fucking loved it.
Oh, this is great. I love this, but it's also hard because we still have more Game Boy.
I agree.
Game Boys coming out.
But
I would throw it an A personally. It's tough, and the only reason I would throw
you're
it
right. It's because if the Game Boy is sitting at C, the Pocket and Light version is added to B. There's no light on it, but there's color graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Color graphics, but still no backlight. Which
you
still,
gotta use a worm
while
light.
you're on a road trip,
You
you're
gotta use that worm
like,
light. No, you gotta use the worm light.
Oh,
man.
yeah, the worm light. Oh,
the
yeah.
one where you sit it up there and you're like, what the fuck? Or those like bootleg third-party things where it was like the magnifier to make the screen bigger, and it also had the white light around the edges, and you couldn't see shit.
Yeah, the Game Boy Color was fucking fantastic, but we were shortly away from some big improvements on what the Game Boy was.
Certainly. Moving past Pocket Pikachu stuff, Game Boy Advance. Ooh. Yeah. The Game Boy Advance was a major improvement over the Game Boy Color with a new handheld shape, shoulder buttons, and better graphics. It was technically compared to the Super Nintendo console, except that the Game Boy Advance's 16-bit sound is not as powerful as the SNES's. Some games remade from the Super Nintendo for the Game Boy Advance had to remix their soundtrack, so they would work on the handheld system, and this is clearly evident in the Donkey Kong Country series. As a fun fact, it was also backwards compatible with Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, making it the first Nintendo handheld to be backwards compatible with more than one generation of console, and this was released in 2001. This is fucking S+ tier console, or handheld console for me. This has an unbelievable form factor that was fucking fantastic. Once again, I had the see-through purple one. It was fucking phenomenal. It had the shoulder buttons, which is a whole new fucking world for you. Did it light up? No, it didn't. It didn't fucking light up. That wasn't there. But there was peripherals like you could buy for it and accessories that would bring you that. But the graphics on this were fucking phenomenal. I remember playing oh my God, so many games on this thing. I had a blast. I'd like to see it at S+. But that's...
I was between S and S+. I thoroughly think this is...
You know what? God, I'll put it at S, only knowing it's...
Well,
successor.
I'm not opposed to the S+, because with the successor, that motherfucker's going straight to the top.
I don't know. Okay, I think Game Boy Advance is S. Let's put it S. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Again, the only thing missing to make this console absolutely fucking perfect was the better sound and the backlight.
I didn't even really give a fuck about the sound.
I didn't either. Most of the time I had it off.
All of it was really annoying sound. Yeah. All right, here we go. Game Boy Advance SP. The Game Boy Advance SP was the first Game Boy to have a clamshell design, much like the Nintendo DS later on. And the Game Boy Advance SP featured much better graphics and a front-lit screen, which could be turned on or off. The model AGS-001, the newer model, AGS-101, features a backlit screen with adjustable brightness. The system's game compatibility is identical to the Game Boy Advance's backwards compatibility with the Game Boy, and Game Boy Color continued with the SP. This was released in 2003.
Oh my God! I love this. The form factor is not as good as the Advance, though.
So I did not. What color did you have?
I had a red one.
Blue, baby, blue.
Yeah. I've got it sitting over there. The only issue I had was it was smaller, so it did cramp up your hands. But the fact that it folded up like it did was really, really cool.
Protected the screen, because all your other Game Boys and shit, you'd have to put in a case, or it fucking, it sucked. Like that was the cheapest fucking plastic they used.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I remember like 2 weeks in, I had a little scratch on the black part of my Game Boy Advance on the screen where it says Game Boy Advance. I went, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
And I saved up and I got a case for it. But yeah, boy,
S+ for me.
Yeah, it's not an S++, but it's an S+.
No, S+.
Okay, cool. The form factor is so bad looking back at it.
It's not great.
So cramped. I mean, my hands are bigger now. But
yeah, I was going to say, as a kid, I didn't notice it as much, but yeah, definitely now. Granted, I still don't have large hands.
And the shoulder buttons fucking sucked.
They weren't great, no.
They were awful.
The advanced form factor But if you added in some of the shit about like the actual SP, this thing would have been perfect. But it's so close.
Moving on to the Nintendo DS. The Nintendo DS featured 2 screens, the bottom one being a touchscreen. The system also had enhanced graphics. It featured backwards compatibility with Game Boy Advance games, except it didn't have multiplayer for Game Boy Advance, but not original Game Boy and Game Boy Color. It was often criticized for its chunky design, often referred to it as the DS Fat by fans. The DS sold 154 million units, making it the second best-selling console behind the PlayStation 2. It was released in 2004. I had the DS Fat. I got the DS day of with my fucking paper route money. I would put this at the S tier. If not,
knowing even the predecessor or the those that are coming after.
So the only reason being, get rid of the
Accessories.
get rid of the dual screen side of stuff, and just the graphical upgrade was a big deal for a Nintendo handheld system. That's why I'd put it at an S. Although I agree with you, sitting at an A tier, the backlight on that thing fucking sucked. You could turn it off and on. There's a button on the side that you could choose like different brightness values for it. It sucked. It was not a good backlit screen. It was very fat. It was very chunky. It was very interesting to use in many ways. So you know what? I think it's an A. I think you're right. I think it's an A.
I would go A.
It's a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I like what it did, and I like what it set up for, its successors to come in and do with some of the other versions of it. It kind of gets in the weeds where you're like, okay, well, there's the Nintendo DS, there's the Nintendo DS Lite, there's DSi, DS. There's so many versions of
we'll get to them,
DS
baby.
or
We'll get to
3DI or whatever the fuck, right?
It.
Like, but yeah, I would throw this at a solid A tier.
Okay.
Just so we have room to expand as we move forward here. Or drop down in some cases.
Oh, yeah. As we move forward, the Game Boy Micro. This was the last model in the Game Boy line and was the smallest handheld ever released and was also released after the DS hit stores. It featured a lack of backwards compatibility to play original Game Boy and Game Boy Color games due to design changes. It is only able to play Game Boy Advance games. The screen was about 2/3 the size of the original Game Boy Advances, and this was released in 2005. So I knew a couple people that had purchased these. Would you say E?
D.
D?
At the highest. I
think F.
Yeah. I don't mind F.
I had 2 friends that had purchased these, and they used them to play them on the bus, and I went, I don't understand, because you could just take your normal Game Boy Advance on the bus and have a bigger screen. Like, I don't get it. It had interchangeable face plates. And this, mind you, this came out around the time where they had, oh my gosh, what was that phone? That was like the gaming phone that came out before we had like touchscreen phones and shit like that. It had a lot of Sonic games on it.
I don't
Nyko or something like that. Pocket Geo or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay. It's not ringing a bell, but yeah.
Okay, there was a phone that was like sold in like EB Games and stuff like that. That was, hold on. I think it was the Nyko Pocket or something like that.
Engage,
that's it. Okay, perfect.
God damn, that thing does not even look like a phone.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. It had Sonic on it.
The Nokia Engage.
Yes.
A brief and depressing history of gaming phones.
Did you know about that or no?
I don't remember seeing that.
So anyone who didn't know what the Nokia N-Gage was, which I didn't know the name of it foolishly, but definitely look into it. It's a fascinating piece of technology, and they tried to get into the gaming market well before the iPhone, well before anything was looking towards app stores or software on phones in general beyond Brick Breaker, and your fucking BlackBerry. So that's it came out around this time, and there was this trend of let's micro everything.
Yeah.
And just make it like a fun little pocket thing. So like I remember the commercials, like a guy on a subway pulls it out of his briefcase. It's like he could just have a Game Boy Advance out of his briefcase, but it's like because it has stainless steel on it, now it's like a fancy Game Boy, but it's 2/3 the size. Anyways, moving on. Here we go. The Nintendo DS Lite. This was the first redesign of the Nintendo DS line. It was much slimmer and smaller than the original Nintendo DS and featured a brighter screen. Backwards compatibility for Game Boy Advance games continued with the DS Lite. 2006 was its release date. So I think the DS Lite is
This
an
one did
S
not
plus
support.
tier
This did not support
color.
color or original Game Boy games, right?
Yeah, no.
It was just Game Boy Advance.
Right, but
Which
it
is
had
bizarre.
a way better backlit screen, and I think the screens were better quality, if I remember. It was also a much nicer design. Had nicer buttons, so like on the DS Fat, it was like a very tactile, like clicky on the DS Fat, and on this it was like a normal, like controller squishy kind of style button. I don't know. It's
go-
better. I think it's S tier. I think it's with the Advance because the amount of people I knew that fucking had them was
Yeah.
absurd.
I would say S tier.
Okay.
I didn't have any experience with this one personally, but I mean, just judging by what I know about it,
was a
I would
thoughtful
say S
upgrade.
tier. It was thoughtful, and everyone had one of these.
Oh my
But
God.
it was weird because they called it the Lite, even though it was a pretty significant upgrade on the original DS. It was very strange.
Yeah. How about the Nintendo DSi, my friend? The second redesign of the Nintendo DS line is slightly bigger, thinner, and brighter than the DS Lite. It was the first Nintendo handheld to feature multimedia. It featured a, get ready for it, 0.3 megapixel camera that you could have fun with editing by editing pictures. It also featured a music app where you could record your voice and then play around with it. You could also listen to actual music. And lastly, it featured the Shop app where you could download games. The backwards compatibility for Game Boy Advance games disappeared in this version of the DS, which caused a lot of disappointment when it came out. On the other hand, it also had a few exclusive games that can't be played on the original DS and DS Lite. This was released in 2008. So
I would drop
mind you,
this.
this was bigger. This was a bigger
Yeah.
DS. It had a bigger screen, both top and bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And it had this, it went from glossy to that flat, nice design that we had,
Yeah.
paint color wise.
I would drop this to an A tier with the original,
I would drop
if
it
not a
B.
little bit lower.
I was thinking
Yeah.
B, only on the basis that
That's fine.
they put a camera in it just because they probably had cameras laying around at that point. And it was just a nicer screen and a nicer backlight, but it
Yeah,
couldn't
but it
do
also
Game Boy
added
Advance.
it added the store, which is good.
Yeah,
it
but the
couldn't
store
do
wasn't
the
utilized
backwards.
at that time in 2008. It wasn't being utilized, and it lost Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, I'd say B's fair.
Okay.
Losing Game Boy Advance at this point in time,
Not a good move.
hurt a lot. Yeah. God, they
Okay.
were just rapid firing these motherfuckers for a little while.
Nintendo DSi XL. The third and last redesign of the Nintendo DS line and the first in the XL
Jesus.
family. It was the same as the Nintendo DSi, except it featured a much bigger and heavier design with a new 4.3-inch dual screens, making it the size of the PlayStation Portable. It also
Jeez.
is the biggest, brightest, and heaviest of the four models like its predecessor. It is not backwards compatible with GBA games, and it came out in 2009. I think it remains
I'd
in
give
the
it a-
B tier.
You're gonna leave it in the B tier?
It's just a bigger DSi. It had a brighter screen.
That's fair. That's fair. Bigger and heavier for a portable is typically not good, especially if you aren't adding anything to it other than a better screen.
Right.
Yeah, I would say keep it in the B tier. I almost bumped it up to A, but that makes sense. Yeah, let's keep it B tier.
All right. Here we go now. The Nintendo 3DS, the successor to the DS line. The Nintendo 3DS can produce 3D graphics on the top screen without the need for glasses and is backwards compatible with most DS and DSi games. It also includes a portable Mii Maker and Street Pass, and it was also the first Nintendo handheld to feature a joystick. This came out in 2011. So, did you have one of the original OG 3DSs?
No.
Okay, I did. So I had a red one. It was glossy. It was a fingerprint fucking magnet. The screens were fucking tiny on the thing, and the 3D did not work well. It was very innovative. People were freaking out that you could have like 3D gaming, like popping out of the screen for you. It didn't give you headaches, at least for me. It didn't cause issues, but the 3D was very bad. And all it ended up being was I would turn it off, and I basically had a better Nintendo DS. I could do more graphical power with a joystick. Because of that reason, I would not put it any higher than an S. This version of the
I was
3DS.
going to say S tier. Yep.
Only on
I
the
was
basis
definitely
that it was a
leaning S
complete
tier.
upgrade for handheld in graphical capabilities, but nothing else.
I would go S tier, especially
So
that makes
8 out of
sense. They
10
did a lot of
for
which
that.
is obviously
That's very
not
good.
bad.
No.
I was between A and S for sure.
Let's talk the
somewhere in
Nintendo
there.
3DS XL. An extra large size version of the 3DS system following the same concept as the DSi XL. The screens are 90% larger than the 3DS, with the system also offering an extended battery life. This was 2012. I think it remains the same. The 3D sucked on it still. It was just bigger screens. It had a better battery life. It wasn't glossy. Mind you, the screens were substantially larger. But I don't think it knocks it up to an S+, because the version that I know most people have is the new Nintendo 3DS. It was the one that exploded.
I almost wonder if we shouldn't knock the original 3DS down a tier and then keep this at S
To
tier.
A?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Because
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
with each iteration, these actually did improve
Okay, so the 3DS
quite significant.
XL is going to be S.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my thinking on it, at least for now, knowing what's coming, right?
Yeah. Knowing what's coming, the Nintendo 2DS. The Nintendo 2DS was a redesign of the 3DS, which uses most of the same software but differs in physical design. It features a more solid tablet-like design. It was supposedly child-proof. Nothing is. As opposed to Nintendo 3DS clamshell design, as name suggests, it also lacks the 3D feature with the top screen graphics only being rendered in the familiar 2D. And there were some games I just couldn't play.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it definitely
also
could
looks
not
like
play
a door
some
wedge, but it's kind of cool.
It is cool. It's a
Released in
cool little
2015.
door wedge. I would throw this in the B
B?
tier. Yeah. I like it for what it is. Like I bought it. It was dirt cheap too. That's
Like
the
90
crazy
bucks,
thing.
wasn't it, or something
It
like that?
was at MSRP was $90, and you could play most games. There was a few games you couldn't play. Like it's a cool little door wedge, man, for what
Yep.
it is. I would definitely go B tier. Yeah.
Moving on, the new Nintendo 3DS. The new Nintendo 3DS is a revision of the original Nintendo 3DS with new features like Amiibo support, so an NFC chip in it, and the faceplates, and added exclusive games and a virtual console of Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which are incompatible with any of the older models. The console also had a 3D screen, which can be viewed in different angles, improving 3D ability, and 2 new buttons and an additional controller nub. It was basically a new system.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this one to me is S+.
Yeah, I would say S+.
This was a phenomenal system.
Yep, I would agree.
Absolutely.
I would
phenomenal
absolutely
system.
agree.
Then after this, we had the new Nintendo 3DS XL, same shit, bigger screen. S+.
S+ stays the same, for sure.
Cool. And then last but not least, we've already positioned the Switch Lite, the new Nintendo 2DS XL.
I would say that takes a bump up from the original 2DS.
Agreed.
Take it up to A tier.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And the last thing remaining on this is a Game & Watch for Super Mario Brothers.
Fuck.
That's
have
whatever. That's a fucking F.
I have the Zelda one, but it literally has never left the box or packaging. Like
it's an F. It's
a collector's thing, right?
It's a fucking D.
I would.
It's cool they came out with it.
God,
Okay, so can I roll through what we've got here?
Yeah,
Just
hang
for
on.
audio listeners.
The new Nintendo 2DS XL. I would almost. Where'd you put that? Was that a
That's in B.
B? God, I'd almost bump it up
That's
to
a
A,
6.
but I'd bump it one above
That's
the
fair.
original 2DS.
I'd
I'd bump it A.
No, it is. It is an A. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay,
The
okay,
2DS
we're
is
good.
in B. Okay, cool.
Then I'm good.
All right, here's the
cool.
rundown. I'm going to go 1 to 10 on this, 10 being the highest, just to make it easier. So the Wii Mini sits at 1. The Virtual Boy sits at 2. In 3 out of 10 stars, we've got the Wii Family Edition and the Game Boy Micro. In 4 out of 10 stars, we have the Wii U and the Mario Game & Watch. Super Mario like Collector Edition when they came back out, right? The 5 out of 10, we have the original Game Boy. We have out of 6 out of 10, we have the Wii, the Nintendo, the NES Classic, the Game Boy Pocket, the Game Boy Light, the DSi, the DSi XL, and the Nintendo DS. 2DS, sorry. On, oh my God. On the 8 out of 10, we have the N64, the SNES Classic, the Game Boy Color, the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo 3DS original version, and the new Nintendo 2DS XL.
Yeah, that'd be your 7 out of 10.
Sorry, 7
just to clarify.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
now you're off. 8 out of 10. We have the NES, the GameCube, the Nintendo Switch Lite, the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo DS Lite, and the Nintendo 3DS XL. The 9 out of 10s, we have the original Nintendo Switch, the Switch OLED, the Game Boy Advance SP, the new Nintendo 3DS, and the new Nintendo 3DS XL. And 10 out of 10 top tier system is the SNES.
Just go ahead and take a guess when we grew up.
Is there any changes we want to make here? I'm fine with where the Game Boy's at. Because this is how it should be, is every other Game Boy elevates up the chain.
Correct.
And that's how it should go.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't do this dip dive shit like some of the consoles have done. Like the Wii, right? Is lower than the N64 and the fucking
the handhelds have been consistent. I mean, each time they put out a new iteration of it, it got better. So yes. I fully agree. I mean, it hurts me inside to put the Game Boy at a C. But
I would like to put the SP at the S++.
Really? Even with the form factor?
Yeah,
that was the big thing.
The backlight was the hugest. I mean, that
thing was massive.
That thing was a huge fucking deal. And I would also put the new Nintendo 3DS up at S++.
Really?
The amount of units that sold was absurd. Everyone had that shit, and there was phenomenal.
The new Nintendo 3DS?
Yeah.
I don't think it sold as well as you would think. Because most people already had it. I don't know. I don't know that off the top of my head. I would keep the SP at an S+ only because that form factor sucked. The form factor was not great. That thing hurt if you used it for too long. If you were gonna bump the new Nintendo 3DS, I would almost bump the new Nintendo 3DS XL.
14 million units worldwide.
Jesus, that is pretty good for a handheld, especially something that has as many iterations as that has.
14 million for that, and for the XL,
probably significantly less. That was right near the end of its lifetime, really. Oh, what's that face?
So all Nintendo 3DS combined, 75 million units.
I thought it was more than that. Oh, that's specifically
that's
3DS. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Wow. Holy fuck. They still sold 170,000 of those in 2021.
Jeez. That's crazy.
Shit.
They're cool little consoles, man. Granted, now they're getting ready to shut down the stores, so there's that. But if you were gonna bump one up to S++, I would say I would lean towards Switch personally. But here's
the problem. Are we just bumping it up because it has finally some of the stuff that our other consoles have had for so fucking long. But this is out of Nintendo stuff, right? So
Yeah, this is solely Nintendo stuff.
yeah, it's an S++, but which one is it? The OLED version or the original OG? I think the OG is enough to it, which means the OLED fucking version is up there too.
I know. I know.
Because at the start it was all ports and third-party shit. Now, obviously, it's evolved into a lot different games. It's also got cloud gaming now too. Yeah, that shit's fucking S++. Let's go. Let's move that. It's the cloud gaming alone, bro. Like, you can play Hitman on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. The bad part is the Wi-Fi inside of the Switch sucks ass, though. It's not great.
But I have not. So if I go back, I had the GameCube. I've had every Nintendo system growing up. Actually, except for there's a long period of time where I didn't have the N64, but then I finally had one. So, like, following the natural progression of the actual product lifeline, for me, GameCube I played a shit ton of. Wii played a decent amount of, for sure. Wii U, I fell off from the Nintendo wagon. 3DS, I had it, kind of fell off. Wasn't really paying much attention to stuff. Kind of was out of the handheld stuff and moving towards more of the console, like 360 and shit like that. And then the Switch has brought me back to actually give a shit about playing Nintendo games.
I think the list where you have it right now is perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna take a screenshot and send this to you so you can tweet it later.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Switch has done something for Nintendo that they have not been able to do in a long time. And it has brought me back to Nintendo in a way that I have not been a part of in a very long time. I love my Switch. I take it I'm getting ready to go on a trip tomorrow. I'm taking my Switch Lite with me. Like I fucking love this. I carry it around the house. Even if I'm not going to play it, I carry it around the house in case I want to play it later.
Amazing.
So I think it definitely belongs where it is. Now, when we get a actual upgrade to the Switch, or whether it's the Switch 2 or whatever the fuck it's going to be.
Well, there's something that came out today that said that Nintendo is not going to release another console until they can create a unique feel. Which means that they're going to do something different.
No, keep the Switch. It's such a beautiful, like,
I think their problem,
it works so
Brody,
well.
I think their problem is that they can't keep it at a price point in that form factor.
If to upgrade it to where it would have to be compatible or
competitive,
comparable. Yeah,
I think they're gonna go more the cloud route.
Yeah, they got to work on their everything. Everything like online related for them is a nightmare.
Very true. All right, let's have one more look at this, just so people can see on the video. There it is. It'll be on our Twitter at Diggity Podcast and our Instagram at Diggity Podcast as well. I'm sure people shit talk on there, no problem. That'll be great. We'll deal with it. It's fine. We are who we are. We're merely just two men on the internet. Other than that, that'll do it for the show, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a different thought on what should have been in a different place, send us a tweet at Diggity Podcast, or put a comment in the YouTube video. Remember to like and subscribe to Spawn Camp for more awesome stuff from Diggity, for more awesome stuff from WASD, OBO, as well as Bill Bros. And until next time, guys, we'll check you later. I'm going to go get some, my thumbs are going to cramp up playing some Switch.